Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Hello, Emily.
Hi there. You guys all look pretty handsome and beautiful over there. Good evening, Mr. Dr. Guy.
Thank you, Emily.
I can't see you, Dion.
Oh, I thought you were talking about me, handsome and beautiful. So I was just telling you thanks.
Well, if you would show your picture, then maybe I could say handsome and beautiful.
Then you would embarrass me, so I better not. How are you?
Pretty good. Still hanging in there.
Still kicking, Nothing wrong with that.
Still kicking.
Aren't
Still
we all?
teaching.
Thank goodness.
Gotta find some young teachers, though.
Yes.
Nobody wants to teach anymore. Dr. Guy, you need to get back into teaching.
He has no comment on that one.
I guess not. I think I'm older than him, and I'm still teaching.
Well, you don't look old, Emily. You
Those
don't
poor
look
kids.
old at all.
It's not a matter of looking old, it's how you feel.
You still have plenty of years ahead of you.
I don't know about that. I think Dr. Guy is trying to say something. Come in, Dr. Guy.
Good evening. Good evening, people.
There he is.
Good evening, Dr. Guy.
Good evening, everybody.
Good. Good. Oh, look. Oh, look at you. Oh, look at you. Okay. See you. See you. Oh, look at you. Okay, go on. Oh, look at you. Uh-huh. Oh, look at you. Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, look at you. Okay, all right. Okay. Fine. Oh, look at you.
Hey, can everybody hear me? I'm having a little phone trouble. Hey.
Can hear you, sir.
Loud and clear, loud and clear.
Okay, I have had some trouble just in the last little bit. I'm just here. If I'm having trouble like mute and unmute, but I'm here, letting y'all know. Thank you.
I think it's time.
We're waiting for Lorraine to send you guys some minutes.
Oh, okay.
It'll be a few minutes, couple of minutes. She's doing it right now, so give me just a few minutes. I believe you have the 7th minutes. We don't have the 21st.
Yeah, you're open.
Am I correct?
That's correct.
You ready? Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order at 5:34. Let's stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for standing for the pledge. Roll call.
Dr. Garashambo,
Here.
Emily Hunt Daly,
Here.
Richard Jones, Dion Sandoval,
Here.
Ron Ortiz.
Here.
I'm sorry, I am here too. Richard Jones is here.
Thank you.
Okay, adoption of the agenda. Mr. Perez, your recommendation, any changes?
Yes, sir. Good evening, everybody. Mr. President, Board. I recommend that we adopt the agenda as presented.
Okay, I need a motion.
Dion Sandoval, so move.
Need a second?
Garishambo seconds.
Okay, roll call.
Dr. Garashambo,
Yes.
Emily Hunt Daly,
Yes.
Richard Jones, Dion Sandoval,
Yes.
Ron Ortiz,
Yes, motion carries. Adoption of the minutes of September 7th, September 21st, 2021. Your recommendation, Mr. Perez?
Mr. President, Board, recommend that we accept the minutes. I know that there is a mix-up on the September 7th minutes, so if the board needs a minute to read over those on the, I'm sorry, on the September 21st, those are in your packets.
Okay. I'm gonna
We'll give you a
find
few minutes to look at them.
Okay.
Is that plenty of time?
Let me just get you-
With that, I need a motion.
Shambo makes the motion to adopt the minutes for the 7th and the 21st.
Need a second?
Dion Sandoval seconds that motion.
Okay, roll call?
Dr. Guyer Shambo,
Yes.
Emily Hunt Daly,
No, I have not received them.
they're in your board packet. Did you check that?
That's what I was asking. Are they in my, which way
Yes,
did
ma'am.
you send them? The GCCS or the,
They're in your.
okay, I didn't find them in the GCCS then.
They're in the
They're
board. Mr. President, they are in the board packet that was downloaded.
Okay,
Okay, I would have to, okay, go ahead then. I still won't know because I haven't received them,
All right,
so.
continue the roll call, Mr. President.
Richard Jones. Dion
Aye.
Sand- Oh, thank you. Dion Sandoval,
Aye.
Ron Ortiz,
yes, motion passes. Recognitions tonight, there's not any.
Just like to make a mention there, Mr. President, Board. So today's actually World Teacher Day, right? So just like to make a mention that we honor and respect all of the teachers out there to continuing their hard work through all the challenges lately that I mentioned periodically. Our administrators were able to get out to the staff to say hello and tell each, not only teachers, but staff members today that we appreciate their work, and we truly do. And just wanted to make a mention of that. And we, behalf of the administration, behalf of the school board, I'm sure that we extend our true and sincere thank you for your continuous dedication and work with the students of Grand Cebolla County Schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perez. Citizens to address the board tonight, the board president shall be responsible for recognizing speakers, maintaining proper order and adhering to the time limit, 30 minutes for all presentations, and a maximum of 5 minutes per speaker. In order to ensure that each individual has the opportunity to address the board, the president may also set a time limit of less than 5 minutes for individual speakers based upon the length of the comment period and the number of requests received. Since we have 3 citizens tonight, we'll be limiting them to 5 minutes per person. Remember that the board cannot respond to the comments, but we'll ask Superintendent Perez to look into your concerns. With that, we have 3 citizens to address the board. We'll start with Crystal Clausen, if you're there. Okay, let's try Chantel Garcia. Are you there? How about Jesse Vandaragan? No. Okay, I guess they're not here tonight. We'll move on to presentations. Superintendent Perez.
Sir, Mr. President, Board, it's that season again for SB 9. And we begin the entire process. I would just like to say that the SB 9 process and project is very important to the district. We appreciate everybody's cooperation and working with the school district so that we can move through this for the best of our students. To keep in mind that SB 9 is primarily for repair, maintenance of all of our facilities. And we do depend on that heavily. So we want to make sure that we engage in this process thoroughly and properly. With that, Mr. President, I'd like to turn it over to our visitors. We have Mr. Art Melendres, and I think we have a representative, Kaylee, from RBC Capital.
Good evening, members of the board, superintendent. I'm happy to be with you this evening, and this is merely an update to remind everybody that November 2nd, 2021 is election day, a very important day for the school district, because at that time, the voters will be asked to approve the SB 9, we call it, but it's the Capital Improvements Tax Levy. And that levy is for repair and maintenance, to purchase furniture and equipment, repair public school grounds, to add to our technology and provide training, and for activity buses. It's important to note that by putting this tax levy in place, it is really a continuation of the tax levy that is currently in place, but will be expiring in 2021. So this will be a continuation of the tax levy. The board adopted a resolution on April 20th, and I only want to make note that it was brought to the attention of the administration and all of us that when we presented the resolution to the board, it was for a period of 6 years for the tax years 2022 through 2027. We caught the error, and it should be for the tax years 2021 through 2026. So we asked the board on April 20th to amend the election proclamation and resolution, and the board followed the recommendation and made the amendment. That amendment has been submitted to the county clerk and to the Secretary of State and to the Public Education Department. And so with that, I'd like to answer any questions you have. We've been working with the administration and especially Steve Maldonado to prepare material to be submitted to the voters. There is a flyer that's before you now that will be submitted to the voters, so it reminds them of the importance of November 2nd. Regina, if there are questions, I'll answer them. Regina, I think you're on. If you have anything to add, please help.
Mr. President, members of the board, superintendent, good evening, everyone. Regina Geisner with RBC Capital Markets, your municipal advisor. I agree with Art here. Again, your last SB 9 election was in 2016, and the question was written for only 5 tax years. Normally, you would have it for 6 tax years, meaning that the tax levy is expiring in the tax year 2020, meaning that the district will continue to receive the funds through the end of October. This is why this election is especially important. If the district fails to pass the election this November, you will lose a year worth of collections and would have to hold a special mail-in ballot elections in early 2022 to reinstate the SB 9. Again, to say, Art mentioned that the question that has been written is now for 6 years to provide the district with additional flexibility when the district will be going back out to voters on November of 2025. We are, and you are also aware that this 50-year election tune-up has had the districts to go out of normal February elections and kind of having to get you on November cycles. So you're aware, you have gone out to voters with geo question November of 2019, and now you're getting your SB 9 question on November cycles as well.
This
So
is
with that
Dion Sandoval. I have no questions, but the only comment I have is we just need to stress is there is no increase in tax rate, and it shows there on the pamphlet. But we just need to stress to the voters anytime we talk to somebody, just put it out there that there is no increase, just to reassure them.
Correct.
Correct.
Any other questions, comments from the board? Mr. Perez?
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Melendres and Regina. This is the beginning, and I believe that the next step, we will be talking with you all, and we will be working to, again, make sure this is all moving along properly and diligently. And we are going to continuously ask for support of the community, and hopefully this will be we will continue this as most districts do throughout the state. And thank you, Mr. Sandoval. It's a good point that we need to reassure the people of the community that we're not increasing taxes. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Perez, presentation, BARP proposal development.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President, board. As you all know, with the ESSER funds and then the American Rescue Plan funds that we've been presenting to for several board meetings now, I think we have upward of about 30 different meetings with different stakeholder groups throughout the last several weeks. And we feel like it's another moment here to update the board on how things are evolving and developing, and also share with you some of the items that we've been sharing with all of the stakeholder groups so that we can keep you informed. And then as we move towards making this the actual detailed plan before we begin to expend those funds. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Maldonado, who's been the lead in all of these presentations. Thank you, Mr. Maldonado.
I can't hear you, sir.
Unmute. Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes, I can, sir.
Oh, Mr. Maldonado, we can't hear you.
Okay, how about now?
I can hear you now, sir.
We're good? All right, I'm sorry about that. All right, I'm going to share my screen. There we go. You can all see that presentation there?
Yes.
All right, thank you so much. Mr. President, members of the board, Mr. Superintendent, I'm pleased to share with you our consultation slides with the American Rescue Plan that we have been promoting throughout a variety of stakeholders. And what we're going to do is walk through a little bit of history, and then we're going to brief you on that. And then we're going to start with sharing 5 proposals that came out of our initial presentation back in July, and then share with you some next steps. So I'm just going to walk through this. If you have questions, feel free just to unmute yourself, board members, and I'm happy to answer those questions as we go, or you can wait till the end when I can open it up for more questions. So we previously went through 10 different stakeholder groups back in June of this year when we received the initial notice of the ARP, or American Rescue Plan funding. We received about 100 responses to our initial survey following those presentations. Based on those responses and our own research, we developed the 5 proposals that we're going to be presenting with you today. Some of the themes and the responses, what we did was we asked several questions, and we took the top several vote getters or comments from those and developed some themes and some from the responses. So our very first question was, what program should we be offering to all students? And these are the top responses that came in. CLRE, which is culturally linguistic responsive education. I'll get into that later. Providing after school and outside of school programs, so not necessarily just after school, but we're talking about evening and weekend programs that came to the surface. CTE training, career and technical education training, STEAM programs, science, technology, and the list of those, engineering, art, and math. SEL, which is social emotional learning. I'll talk a little bit more about that as well. And then offering life skills and soft skills. Life skills could be anything from how to change a tire to balancing your checkbook to how to pay your taxes, those kinds of things. And soft skills, instilling in students those skills that are necessary for effective communication with others and a variety of audiences. The second question we asked was, what should we be providing for special needs students? And family and student support programs came to the top. Providing mental health services was another top vote getter. New equipment and facilities specific for special needs students. Again, SEL, and again, life and skills and soft skills. We specifically asked, what should we be providing to at-risk students? The top responses there, again, were the after school and outside of school programs, behavioral health programs, counseling for families, which was a new one, and CTE training. Another question we asked was, what kinds of jobs should we be preparing students for? And these were the top that came, the responses: healthcare, vocational trades, which could include anything from welding to cooking and just a variety, electrical work, just a variety of vocational trades. Science and technology, hospitality and tourism, education, agriculture, and business and manufacturing. We also asked, what could we be doing to show support to staff? What kinds of activities could we engage in that would demonstrate our support for our staff? And the top things that percolated to the top again were find ways to continually show respect and appreciate and support staff, offer competitive salaries and health benefits, provide teacher mentorship and training, provide some rewards and incentives to keep teachers and staff, and then make sure that the teachers and staff have the materials and technology support needed in order to do their jobs. Then the last question we asked was, what could we be doing to achieve more parent engagement? And the answers there were offer meaningful communication opportunities, offer parenting classes, so that came up again, family counseling, and more opportunities for parents to be at school sites. So in response to this, it's clear that our community of students and parents are looking for some help and some ways to engage with the school district and some ways to provide services that provide for the entire holistic sort of part of the family structure and student structure in order to make them, in order to help students become more successful and achieve more in the learning environment. So if you remember, the priorities for the ESSER 3 funds, or the American Rescue Plans funds, were very similar to those outcomes that came from the Yazzie Martinez ruling. And we grouped them into 3 major categories. There's more, but we grouped them into 3 categories that we thought were the categories that we could address most meaningfully. They were the underrepresented student subgroups, providing services for students with disabilities, and looking at providing equity through collaboration and consultation. So the ESSER 3 priorities is very similar to the Yazzie Martinez ruling priorities, and so that's the focus. We use this as our sort of foundational launch pad to come up with the 5 proposals in tandem with what kind of feedback we got from our stakeholder groups. Just to remind everyone how the ESSER 3 or ARP funding works, they provide 2/3 of the $14 million. So it's $14 million allocation. 2/3 of that would be about $9.4 million, of which we're tasked with providing or assigning 20% of that to addressing learning loss. And I'll give you that definition that the state provides in just a moment. The other 80% towards other ARP uses. And then the state and the federal government is looking for feedback from how well we did with these programs. And so they want us to respond to give some feedback on how things are going before they give us the remaining third. And this is the amount of that remaining third. So of the 14 million, the first allocation is 9.3 million. The remaining is 4.6 million, all right? And just to remind you that we received the CARES money first, that was $1.6 million. We received that in March of 2020. Those funds have to be expended by September of 2022. No, 2022. Then we received the Carissa funds, which was $6.4 million, have to be expended by 2023. And then we have the remaining here that has to be expended by September of 2024. I think I got that right. Anyway, we have a 3-year window to expand all of these. The state is asking that we totally exhaust the funds from the CARES Act first, and then the Carissa Act, which we haven't really touched a lot of that money yet. And then we'll should be expending the money from ARP. So here's our first proposal in addressing learning loss. Remember, it's that 20% of the ARP funds. And here our objective is to share resources to collaborate on interventions that are targeted to specific populations. And again, we're looking at the first 2/3 of 1.8 million and then 939,000. The state has asked us to look at addressing learning loss through evidence-based interventions that respond to students' academic, social, and emotional needs, and especially those that address the disproportionate impact that the public health emergency has had on the economically disadvantaged, children with disabilities, English learners, racial and ethnic minorities, migrant students, students experiencing homelessness, and children and youth in foster care. And again, I remind you that if you took a 10,000-foot view of our student population, this is a great definition of many of those students. So this, our objective here is to share resources with educational partners to address very specific issues that are unique to a particular student subgroup. And this checks this box right here of providing student equity through collaboration and consultation. So we're making some bold proposals here to begin to move forward in that respect. And we expect to get some really good outcomes from that. So our goals are to inspire creativity, to strengthen partnerships by funding projects with approaches that are specific to a particular culture, and population, to allow partners to identify their unique and particular needs and to implement a plan that works for them, allow partners to help determine project funding priorities, and to create metrics that might benefit all. This is a very important component of this. Remember, I told you that the state and the federal government are going to want us to show and demonstrate how can some of these projects be scalable? How can they benefit others? What learning can we take from these projects that may be initially addressing specific cultures or specific populations, but how can we build on the successes of those and scale them to share with others? And I think that that's really going to be the challenge, and it's going to be the part that really begins to inspire creativity in our partnerships. So what we're proposing is to take 1.2 million of this funds for the learning loss and provide project funding for each of these particular tribes and pueblos in our area, through up to $300,000 for projects for the Acoma Pueblo, another $300,000 specific to the Laguna Pueblo, another $300,000 for the Navajo Nation, and then about $900,000 to address projects and programs for all the other subgroups that are represented within our district. And remember, we want partners to come to the table with ideas that, again, are that address unique cultural and specific issues for that particular population, but with an eye on being able to scale that and use the lessons learned and the successes that we could share with others, and make sure that these things are able to be scalable so that all populations benefit. The total allocation for this, this particular proposal is $2.8 million, of which 1.2 million to the dedicated population interventions, and then another 407,000 for enhancements in our standards-based instruction, and then 202,000, so that's 609,000 there, and then SEL and PD for all staff. So here's what we're talking about here. Since Mr. Perez has come to the district, one of his sort of laser focus areas has been to make sure that we sort of shift the paradigm of our education modality so that we're standards-based instruction rather than just program-based. And we've made some significant headway in that. Here we want to make sure that we put enough of these resources into continuing that process and building on that success throughout the next few years so that we don't lose sight of that. That takes some significant training and resources. And that's why we want to offer some training and on social and emotional learning, how to prepare students to cope with learning in the environment at school, given all the other things that happen at home, how to prepare them for that, and then provide some professional development for our staff. So this is the allocation for our first proposal. Our second proposal is to build a comprehensive CTE program that prepares students with the skill sets needed for a prosperous future. And here, our objective is to create opportunity for students across the spectrum of abilities, talents, and ambitions. This checks all the boxes that we were targeting here, and our goals are to create a physical and academic environment that blends practical skills with academic achievement, to provide a variety of career pathways that challenge the mind and excite the imagination, to partner with employers to create sustainable programs and to develop mentorship opportunities, to prepare students for a prosperous future, and then to also position the district as a leader in opportunity and innovation for our students. I think what we're looking to do is create a real practical and academic center of excellence for CTE programs for the district. So here are the six pathways to student success that were, again, based on the feedback that we got from stakeholders: programs in healthcare, vocational trades, science and technology, education, agriculture, and manufacturing and business. It doesn't mean that we do away with any of the current CTE programs that we have in place. It means that we build on those successes and integrate that into a full-scale CTE program that is really, again, building a center of excellence for our students and preparing students who either want to go to college or enter vocational trades, giving them several tracks to choose from and beginning to really respond to the needs of our employers and respond to the wants and desires of our students. Our total proposed allocation here is $7 million. So from that, we're going to take 2.5 million. If you remember from previous Carissa allocations, we had already earmarked $2.5 million for CTE programs, even though it didn't have a lot of definition. We couple that with the $3 million here and from the first allocation, and then the second allocation, 1.5 million. So of that, we want to allocate $5.6 million into facilities and equipment, really begin to build some physical structures or equip what we already have and really begin to build a center of excellence and a CTE program that is well equipped, that has the facilities necessary, that will position our students once they graduate to be ready for the workforce and be ready to enter the workforce and to compete in an area, in the workforce areas that they would have actually to step up from other places, other students that come from other districts perhaps. And to do so, $1.4 million in instructional costs, building the partnerships. This is the programming part of it. What do we have in place? Who's going to teach it? All of those things. So this is a pretty significant allocation, $7 million in proposal number 2. So far, out of the 14 million, this is taking up $9.8 million, or 69% of the total allocation. Very important for us. Proposal number 3 is appreciating culture and diversity by infusing culturally linguistic and responsive education in all of our learning modalities. Our objective here is to review and refresh our instructional resources, our pedagogical approaches, and create compelling academics that serve students from a variety of cultures and backgrounds. This check boxes, among other things, the underrepresented student subgroups, and really begins to focus education on those areas that we want to make sure that we establish a great presence in culturally relevant education. So our goals are to define and discern the value of culturally linguistic and responsive education, determine the applicability of CLRE with students in the district, develop a comprehensive CLRE approach, and identify and implement exhaustive and thorough training. So this very first one, where we define and discern the value of culturally linguistic responsive education. The state has a general definition of what that is, but I think we've learned by now that not one size doesn't fit all. And I think it's important for us to really identify and discern where we want to go as a district in terms of offering culturally linguistic and responsive education. What does it mean for us? And perhaps some of our lessons learned might be able to be shared by others, but our approach is that what works in Hobbs or Carlsbad or Los Alamos may not necessarily fit just us. So we didn't want a cookie cutter approach. We wanted really to begin to focus on what happens here. And that means that we have to collaborate and involve different stakeholders to identify those particular needs. Our proposed allocation here is $1 million out of the 14 million. 200,000 of that in academic review and planning, again, talking about how do we identify what CLRE means for us, and then really infusing enough resources and training with our staff, not just teachers and the education staff, but administrators, everyone involved with students or involved in preparing for students, really beginning to really train how we as an organization change our culture to be responsive to these various cultures. Our fourth proposal is caring for vulnerable populations by widening the availability of technology and special services that will increase the learning opportunity for all students. Here we check 2 of the boxes, underrepresented student groups and students with disability. And our objective is to reach out to special needs populations, vulnerable students, and those whose living situations create significant barriers to success. We want to identify opportunities to enhance services to vulnerable populations. We want to invest in next generation technology to allow all students access to education and services. We want to reach out to students and families whose living situation may create impediments to successful learning and dramatically seal that digital divide. I think it's important to recognize that we've already started to make some headway in terms of reaching out to students and families as we last year began our outreach when we began to lose students who were not participating in the virtual education. It became really important for us to go and find out why they were sort of off the grid and what was going on with them, and bring it back into the fold to make sure that we are doing our due diligence and providing services to all students. And this has proven invaluable for us, as you've seen our enrollment figures increase dramatically from last year to this year, which is a good sign. We need to build on that success, and we need to understand what are the other things that are creating impediments to student learning. So we're proposing to allocate $3.5 million in the overall program. 1.4 million of that will be dedicated to technology and infrastructure, something that will sustain us over the next 4 to 5 years, right? And so we took a lot of, we spent a lot of effort and money in just beginning to get, enabling ourselves to get devices in the hands of both teachers and students, and then building a technology base and foundation that would at least support most of that, but we still have more work to do. You may have heard me at sometimes talk about, we have, 2 tons of technology trying to go over, plywood bridge of support and infrastructure. So we really need to shore that up so that we're planning for the future. And then of course, $2.1 million in these outreach and special services. So I'm thinking about even providing, looking at assistive devices for those vulnerable populations and special services, students who are unable to come to school, or maybe they need more than just a Chromebook and they may need a bigger screen of some sort, or voice adaptability, things like that. We really need to start thinking about what to provide for that. And I think we're compelled by not just our own desire to do that, but we're compelled by the Yazzie Martinez ruling, and we're compelled by the definitions within the ARP. The 5th proposal is to create a nurturing culture for staff by providing tools for staff to thrive in a challenging and dynamic environment. Our objective here is to foster a caring and nurturing environment for staff. It cannot go without saying that the last 20 months have been really rough on all staff, and we want to begin to create a healthy and caring environment for staff, offer a variety of well-being programs, instill confidence in staff that heartens all who enter the profession. I go here, I'm reminded that many those who entered the education field are driven by a sense of mission or purpose, and they do it not just for the money or the time off, but they do it for a sense of mission and purpose. And this pandemic has sort of shaken some folks at the core, and we want to really begin to sort of reignite that excitement and have put in place some ways that will help our staff sort of regrasp that sense of mission and purpose and move forward with confidence. We also want to implement recruitment and retention strategies to reduce turnover while increasing staff satisfaction. Our total proposed allocation here is $2.2 million, of which 1.1 million would be dedicated to health and well-being programs, and another 1.1 million to recruitment and retention programs. So in summary, out of the $14 million, proposal number 1 in learning loss would be $2.8 million allocation. The CTE out of the ARP funds, remember, is 4.5. We couple that with the Carissa funds, that comes up to 7 million. But out of this money, this is how much we would allocate. For culture and diversity, $1 million. Caring for vulnerable populations, 3.5, and then creating a nurturing culture for staff. So what are the next steps? We continue to receive feedback from stakeholders on this particular presentation. We need to develop specific budgets based on business and program planning. We need to develop a timeline for program implementation, develop some written parameters for those partner projects so that everyone's clear on what the expectations are, implement programs in a structured, expeditious manner, and integrate these proposals with our updated strategic plan, and then determine key milestone dates for each program so we can keep on track, see what we need to adjust, making sure that we're keeping everybody informed every step of the way and making progress on each of these proposals. So that's my presentation. I'm happy to open it up for answers and if you are questions rather, and if you want me to go back to a certain slide, please feel free to ask. Mr. Perez.
Thank you, Mr. President. We want to open up for questions.
Any questions, comments from the board?
Mr. President,
Yes, Dr. Guy.
I'm looking at the summary. Okay. And I'm also comparing that against the ESSER 3 planning slide that you had. And trying to make sense of it. It is a very comprehensive presentation. Thank you, Mr. Maldonado. I appreciate that. Let me suggest something for you on next steps. When I look at next steps, excuse me, I think it's that we should begin with, we should always begin with quantifying the needs that exist within our student population. And when we say defining the needs, it means all students, all 3,000 plus that we got, so we can understand what it is that that is facing our students academically right now. Secondly, we need to then design programs that need to be implemented by the existing programs that we have. Plus, we need to design $14 million worth of program to meet the needs that are stated by ARP. One of them, of course, was learning loss, and etc. So the greater challenge is to decide what it is that we're going to do in greater detail. And so when I visualize a vertical column that begins the process of stating what are the programs that are going to be associated with the 5 proposals, and that requires a lot of expertise within the district and outside of within the district personnel, and also with utilizing individuals within our stakeholder groups to help us define what it is that are the programs that will be funded. So I see, first of all, making sure that we know what the needs are and state those clearly for ourselves. Number 2 would be to design the programs. Then that second bullet comes into place to develop specific budgets based on business program. So we need to wait on budgets until we know what programs we're going to develop. It sounds like there's a 3-year period in which we're supposed to implement this. At the same time, the administration is implementing existing programs based upon our general operating funds that we have to date. So we have we have 2 sources of funds in some ways. One is the ARP funding for 14 million. Then we have the larger amount that has been awarded to us in our annual budget that we had the state approved back in June. So we somehow have to create an understandable matrix of what it is that we're going to do, how much funds we're going to have, which of those are related to the existing programs, and so we don't necessarily duplicate. You mentioned at the bottom, the determine key milestone dates for each program. I think we need to do more than that. I think we need to define what are the key performance indicators. Once we create milestones, we're basically saying at certain points in time, this is what we have achieved. And we are going to base that achievement of a milestone upon performance indicators. What is it that we say must be done in order for us to suggest that we've achieved milestone 1, milestone 2, etc. Our strategic plan is being in the process of updating. And so there's that logistical challenge that we have. We have to do the strategic plan development, which is supposed to be completed by the first part of next year, if I remember right. So that strategic plan is supposed to give an overarching view of what this system of education that we have will seek to accomplish. What are the major goals? And the annual budget that we received in June, plus this fund, this $14 million funding that we've received, also must be able to address the strategic plan initiatives that we're going to be setting forth. I have a couple of suggestions on focus. And I'm trying to figure out where it fits. And maybe it's under the other, when we talked about other, and that was, I think under learning loss. We need to be much more clear and expansive on what did we say English learners must be, what kinds of programs we're going to provide for English learners. And if you scroll up, there we go, back now. You listed the 3 tribes. Then you have all other at-risk groups. And so we need to figure out what that is. And does this, and it should include English learners, because we have a sizable population of our students who are English learners. We used to call them limited English proficient students, because a lot of the underachievement that our children are facing is their inability to be proficient in English in order to comprehend the academic text that they have to they're exposed to at the grade level. And we already have programs right now that are seeking to train our teachers in teaching strategies that are helpful for those students who are English learners. English learners are those students who have been identified by a English language proficiency test and are an identifiable population whose needs must be addressed systematically by the regular educational program plus any supplemental funds that we have. So you have a listing of them there. And I'm not so much talking about learning loss, although we did not have a definition of learning loss from you. We just had a description of what it is. And Mr. Perez and I know that it's difficult to define what learning loss is. What we have to do is to have the schools identify where the students are at right now, so we can take steps to make sure that the standards that they're to learn are at grade level and that they're receiving the accelerated programs. But English learners, we need to make sure we are clearly understanding that the English learning is critical to academic success. And I want us to make sure we explore what that means. I may have some other things to say, but right now that is all. Board members, I apologize for taking the time, but these are some of my thoughts.
Thank you, Dr. Beck. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Maldonado? If not, thank you, Mr. Maldonado. Mr. Perez.
So I just want to just say a couple of things about those are interesting ideas that Dr. Archambault brings up. I forgot about the LEP acronym that hasn't been used in quite a while. It used to be a common limited English proficient was common back in the day. Just to give some perspective here, you know, again, I just want to say respect the thought about detailing this out. As we move through this, we started with wide, broad buckets that we were just collecting information on, trying to form this into logical categories. And as time has gone on, this is where we landed at this point. But I'd like to assure everybody that when we move forward from here, we do intend on being more specific about activities, more specific about all the details in all of these areas. But this is how it's evolved to this point. The other thing is we mentioned, that being said, we have a rather short period of time to plan, only because we want to start having action instead of, versus talk. So I think we're at the point where we want to complete the input. We'll always continue to get input. We'll always continue to adjust all of the things that we're doing. But we are feeling that we're at the point where we want to start implementing a lot of these programs. And then just a note on how we're building on existing programs. A lot of the voices we've heard over the last several weeks, months, is to improve our career technical education. And so we are moving that forward with that, even despite the conclusion of our planning here. We are working with a group of high school leaders. We have a consultant that we are working to develop pathways for all of our high school students, so we can solidify an articulation, a program from middle school to high school to the local community college or to universities. So we want some clear pathways that are lined up with our next step plans from 8th grade through graduation and beyond. So those are some of the things that we're working on that I believe fit right in with all of the with the input that we've been receiving. We want to make sure that we're staying diligent with improving our CTE programs, which is just one category of this, but I just wanted to share that is an example of tapping onto our existing CTE programs. We have some great people teaching them. We have welding programs. We have a great agricultural teacher at Grants High. We have some good things going on at Laguna Acoma High School. So where the plan is to organize and coordinate all of that, so we have some clear pathways for the students, not only clear career pathways, but then we have the advisors to assist these students and choosing and proceeding through those pathways. So just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Mr. Perez. Okay, with that, let's move to action 7A, consideration of approval to purchase 14 smart boards with accessories for classrooms. Mr. Perez, your recommendation?
Yes, sir. Mr. President, Board, I do recommend that we approve the purchase of these 14 smart boards with accessories for classrooms.
Okay, I need a motion.
Dion Sandoval, so move.
Need a second?
Emily Hunt Daly, second.
Okay, discussion?
Mr. Perez, is that going to ensure that every classroom now has a smart board? Are we still lacking at some school sites?
Thank you, Ms. Daly. Mr. President, so I believe, and Mr. Maldonado, you gotten the request through your office, and I believe that this is filling in those gaps that we have not completely gotten to yet. I know we've gotten just about every classroom so far in the district, and I think this would be make that order complete, so to speak. Mr.
Yes, sir,
Maldonado.
that is true. It also includes music classrooms and other classrooms that weren't part of the original purchasing of the smart boards. So this would be all classes, all disciplines, and all schools.
And are we providing training on use of the smart board as well?
When they, ma'am, when they're initially installed, the technicians who we purchased from do initial training. They offer additional training as well in terms of allowing teachers to achieve full functionality. We haven't gotten there yet, but we are able to provide that to anyone who asks. And certainly it's part of our package, so there's no extra cost.
I guess my concern is that in the event that this pandemic slows down, that we make this an essential tool for classroom instruction, not just right now for remote, that we continue to utilize that. And so the training is needed, especially for those that would like to use every functionality of a smart board. I use a smart board in my classroom, and I still don't know everything there is to know about smart boards. And so I just think that we're spending all this money on them, which is a good thing, but we just need to make sure that teachers also continue to use it to its full benefit for all students.
Ms. Daly. Mr.
Thank you.
President, I'd like to just add to that. I know you well know as a teacher, Ms. Daly, that through the pandemic, we were providing all of the smart boards, and teachers, all the teachers that we know about have become very proficient at being able to utilize these smart boards.
Mhm.
And we were utilizing them very well throughout the when we were doing totally online. And now that we shifted back to face-to-face, I can assure you that the classrooms that I visited, the teachers are still utilizing these smart boards in a very good way, and have incorporated them in part of their as part of their classroom routine. So I think that's one of the benefits that we've gotten out of the pandemic, is that we've learned to use this new tool. And I believe that teachers are taking full advantage of continuing that even post online. So, thank you.
Good. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions? Comments? If not, we'll do roll call.
Dr. Guyer Shambo,
Yes.
Emily Hunt Daly,
Yes,
Richard Jones,
yes,
Aye.
Dion Sandoval,
Yes.
Juan Ortiz,
Yes. Motion carries. Consent agenda tonight. Superintendent Perez, your recommendation.
Yes, sir, Mr. President, Board, I recommend that we approve the items in the consent agenda as presented.
Okay, need a motion?
Emily Hunt Daly, so moved.
Okay, need a second?
Dion Sandoval, second.
Okay, any discussion? If not, we'll do roll call. Roll call.
Dr. Guyer Shambo,
Yes.
Emily Hunt Daly,
Yes.
Richard Jones,
Yes.
Aye.
Dion Sandoval,
Aye.
Ron Ortiz.
Yes, motion carries. Superintendent's report, Superintendent Perez.
Yes, sir. Mr. President, Board, just wanted to give a quick update on the security for the schools. I think I've informed the board that we've been working with the city to finalize an MOU between the city and the schools. Our initial request was to have 2 SROs, one at the high school, one at the mid school, and at large. The police department has not been able to hire 2 SROs, but they are in the process of hiring 1 SRO and 1 PSA, which is a non-certified officer. So at this point, we're moving forward with attaining an SRO for Grants High, a PSA, public safety, public service aid, I'm sorry, for the Lambs, for grants. And then we're also have just acquired an SRO for Laguna Acoma High School. His first day was yesterday, I believe. And we've looked at the MOU there. We're still operating under the existing MOU that we've had with Laguna, and we'll be revisiting that to finalize that and firm it up. So the good news is we're getting an SRO at Laguna Acoma High School, an SRO at Grants High School, and a public service aide at Lambs. Now, this is in addition to the increased security guards that we've put into place. Laguna Acoma, we do have a full-time security guard there as well. At Grants, because the size of the school, I believe we have 3 security guards in addition to the SRO. And then at Lambs, we have a security guard position there. So with that, we'll have another layer of security for our staff and students at those 3 secondary schools. And that's what I have, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent Perez. Okay, with that, executive.
Mr.
session-
President,
Go ahead, Ms. Hunt.
wait, I have a question, Mr. Perez, who details out the duties and responsibilities for the SROs? Is that written into their contract from the department, or is it written, provided by the school district?
That, Ms. Hunt, Mr. President, those details are right now in the MOU. They're written in the MOU.
Okay.
We can specify them even more detailed if I work with the police department there, Laguna Police Law Enforcement. We can always maybe more specific, we can take, but the general outline of the duties are in the MOU.
Okay, I know that there have been some concern as to indications that, that's not his duty to do. And so I just was curious as to who implements the duties and responsibilities. And I'd like to go ahead and revisit the MOU at some point. Thank you.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Daly. Okay, with that, executive session, superintendent's evaluation as permitted under section 10-15-1H of New Mexico Meetings Act. I need a motion to go into executive session.
Emily Hunt Daly, so moved.
Need a second?
Dion Sandoval, second.
Okay, roll call.
Dr. Guyer Shambo,
Yes.
Emily Hunt Daly,
Yes.
Richard Jones,
Aye.
Beyond Sandoval,
Aye.
Ron Ortiz,
Yes. The time was 6:41.
And Mr. President, board members, we'll do, I'm going to sign out of this meeting. We'll go into executive session. Once we're finished with the executive session, we'll sign back on to this link and this meeting to close the meeting. So it give us just a couple of minutes to open up the second meeting. We're signing out now.
Okay.
I apologize, ma'am. They're still in executive session.
Good to go now.
Good to go. Okay, the board came out of a closed session at 7:37. The only items discussed were the superintendent's evaluation as permitted under section 10-15-1H of the New Mexico Meeting Act. I need a motion to return to open session.
Emily Hunt Daly, so moved.
You need a second?
Garshambo seconds.
Thank you, Dr. Guy. Roll call?
Dr. Guy Shambo,
Yes.
Emily Hunt Daly,
Yes.
Richard Jones,
Aye.
Dion Sandoval,
Aye.
Ron Ortiz.
Yes. We return to open session. I don't know if you need the time, but it's 7:38. Announcements are there for you to look at. I'm sorry.
Comment on the announcements if I can.
Okay, Mr. Perez, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just want to emphasize on the announcements on October 13th, which is coming up soon. The New Mexico School Board Association Fall Region 4 meeting will be happening, I believe it's at 5:30
Yes.
that evening. So it's encourage board members to be there. It's an opportunity for not only the training, but for the board points. So that's it, Mr. President.
Okay. So that- Mr. Perez?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It's a Wednesday.
Wednesday, okay. Thank you, Ms. Hunt. Okay, with that, I need a motion to adjourn.
So
Emily
moved.
Hunt Daly,
Garsh-
so moved.
Second, Garshambo.
Okay, roll call.
Dr. Guy Shambo,
Yes.
Emily Hunt Daly,
Yes.
Richard Jones,
Thank you. So.
Dion Sandoval,
Aye.
Ron Ortiz.
Yes. Meeting adjourned at 7:39. Thank you, everybody. Good night. Have a good evening.
Good night.